Hello, Merry Christmas, everyone. We're recording this on actual Christmas Day here on the East Coast time. So this deck is a bit of a brew. This is from Pete Ingram's article on Star City Games. It is basically a Jund mid-range traverse deck with the main goal of enabling Emrakul the Promised End. Because other than that, it's just basically looks like an Abzan traverse deck or the old Jund Death Shadow deck with like Tarfires and Mishra's Baubles to get your Tarmogoyfs as big as possible. You're trying to get as many card types both to make your Tarmogoyfs ridiculously big, your Grimflares have Delirium, your Traverses be able to go get any land or creature you want. So you have like Artifact and Mishra's Bauble, you have Corsair Crewfix being an enchantment, you have Tarfire being a tribal instant. Basically you have every card type possible in the deck. The sideboard's a mixture of spells to also kind of play off that. Beyond that, you've just got your usual Jund mid-range cell, Inquisition, Thoughtseize, bolts. One thing we're missing is Fatal Push, which I don't know how much we're going to miss that. This is just, I think, a rough sketch deck of his, so we're just going to take it into a few 2-mans. But beyond that, you've got Terminates, Abrupt Decays, and Liliana of the Veil, Liliana of the Last Hope, and then Kolaghan's Command, just your basic Jund mid-range shell with some outlying card choices just to enable Delirium, Force Reverse, and Grimflare, and to make your Emrakul the Promised End. Which this card was obviously banned in Standard. 13/13 for 13, that you basically mind slaver your opponent and you have a 13/13 that can't be targeted by instants. And it has Flying and Trample. And for every card type in your graveyard, its cost is reduced to 1, so theoretically in this deck you could get all the way down to costing just 5 mana. So, don't know how realistic that is. It's one thing we'll be looking in some of the games we play. And then, sideboard. So for a deck with a bunch of Traverse the Ulvenwald, you've got special targets in Grim Lavamancer, Kitchen Finks, Fulminator Mage, and Thrun the Last Troll, as well as Spellskite. So Grim Lavamancer, obviously for small creature decks. Grafdigger's Cage is graveyard hate that doesn't really hurt you too much because we're not trying to cast anything from the graveyard. And we're also not trying to bring creatures back from the graveyard, so it works nicely in conjunction with the Scavenging Oozes. Bitter Blossom as both an enchantment to enable your various Delirium and Emrakul strategies, as well as having something for grindier matchups and decks like Affinity. It could come in. Ancient Grudge pretty much for Affinity, but also for Lantern Control. Spellskite, this one's kind of dicey. I mean, you've got Boggles, you've got Infect. They're nowhere near as big a part of the meta as they were when Spellskite saw a ton of play. So this one's kind of a little sketchy, but we're just going with Pete Ingram's original list. Anger of the Gods for matchups with small creatures that you just need sweepers. Pulse of Marasa allows you to rebuy creatures or lands and gain life in matchups like Burn. Fulminator Mage for big mana decks. Sometimes you'll bring it in against the greedier mana-based decks. Kolaghan's Command when you're grinding. Kitchen Finks for non-path exile grind matchups and Burn. Crumble to Dust for Tron and Valakut, and then Thrun for pretty much control, but you could also bring it in against removal heavy decks if they're killing a lot of your creatures or if they're going after your graveyard. So that being said, we're going to give this a run in a couple of 2-man queues. I'm not feeling like trying to run this through a league quite yet. Maybe if the deck does well, we might try it in a league sometime. But for now, we're just going to run it through a 2-man queue or two. Magic Online keeps repositioning itself. Promised End Jund. trying to think, is there anything else about the deck in particular that I noticed other than it's basically a Jund Traverse deck. Like, the Fatal Push, lack of Fatal Pushes seems a little loose. Rest of the card choices, I think, make a lot of sense. But that Fatal Push seems like a bit of a... so, something to keep an eye on. Alright, so this hand has... yeah, we'll go ahead and keep this hand. It's good against... oh, Tron. Yeah. Tron. Tron doing Tron things. Alright, Inquisition here. So... probably getting Overgrown Tomb with this, so I may as well just go ahead and do this now. Get the land in the graveyard. Get our Overgrown Tomb here. Hopefully we can tag a... like a Sylvan Scrying or Ancient Stirrings. Opponent has Fatal Push, Star, Sphere. So that kind of started. I think we gotta take the Fatal Push and just kind of hope. Hoping and wishing and praying. So our opponent did not mulligan. Oh, and they hit Sylvan Scry. Tron doing Tron things. Alright, so they have Power Plant. Alright, so... green black, play out Grim Flare here. Pass to our opponent. So, we're probably not in good shape. Yeah, now that they're going to have Tron next turn. World Breaker is going to be an enormous pain in the hind end. So, I mean, we've got sideboard cards for the matchup, which that will help some, but Tron is still generally a bad matchup for Jund. So... put that in the graveyard. Alright. That and that. So we're interested in drawing the Thoughtseize. We're going to fetch away the land, but we really don't want to be giving away lands when our opponent's going to be blowing up some amount of our lands. So play out the Magoyf. Play out Magoyf and pass. Yep. Crack that, go get their Tron piece. The next turn they get to play World Breaker. And from there we're pretty much SOL. Seriously, they drew Eugene? Or is this Walking Ballista? I'm gonna say, I think our opponent mistapped. Sure. Go after our green source here. Yep. Play that out. Now the question is, am I supposed to bolt their face, or that would push Goyf up to a... that'd still be a 4-5. May as well bolt them at the end of turn to be mana efficient. So terminate would be... no, we know we're drawing... I'm gonna say we know we're drawing Thoughtseize, so perhaps it was incorrect to top the Thoughtseize. Opponent's got Ballista, Star, and then a couple lands. Take the Ballista. So it looked like they were actually considering playing Ballista there, which is interesting. Grab. Need a green source, so I guess Stomping Ground. So I could attack in with both, but I suspect... let's see if they block. They likely will. Just as a reason I shouldn't have thrown away Bolt last turn. Yep. Chump check on Lightning Bolt. Pass. Alright. So our opponent's got a redraw. So they had 2 draw steps to hit something big here. Yeah, that's pretty annoying. Wow. Okay. It's like, why can't you attack, opponent? That would be so nice of you. Grim Flare. This is not the card we need. May as well attack with both. That'll get Delirium in our graveyard. Force our opponent to react here, possibly. Alright, sure. Gets a 4th card type in our graveyard. Our opponent takes kind of the hit we want. So we're at 9. Emrakul costs 9. See, I'm not a huge believer that Emrakul is going to be a reality to cast in this deck very often. Even with Pete's... okay. Yep. It's possible I should have held out like Abrupt Decay here or something. But I don't think we were winning this game anyway. Sideboard, we actually have quite a few reasonable draw steps. Another Oblivion Stone. Alright. Take this hit here, we're not blocking either way. Force them to blow the O-Stone. They're going to have to blow it if they don't want to take the damage. go and grab. This is where I'd really like to have like another overgrown tomb here. But the way he set up the deck. Alright, so what am I grabbing here? Guess it's just another Tarmogoyf. Play out the Tarmogoyfen. And pass. So another hand is another Land of War Waste and Oblivion Stone. Ancient Stirrings seems like a good card. And that'll do, donkey, that'll do. Alright, so our opponent is on Tron, and this deck has quite a bit of tools in the sideboard. Pete Ingram put in this deck for Tron, but I don't think it's still enough. Bring in the Fulminators. I'm trying to think how many other things we want to bring in here. Emrakul is just never casting it in this matchup. Grim, Cage, Bitter Blossom, Grudge, Spellskite, Pulse. Might want to bring in Kulagon's Command here. There'd be some consideration for Pulse if we had something like Ghost Quarter, but I think with just Fulminator Recursion, that's not something we want. Thrun, the only reason we'd bring it in is if we want a threat that isn't dependent on the graveyard. That might not be horrible, and they can't target it with Karn. So maybe this is relevant, but we're reaching for stuff because this matchup's just awful. Scavenging Ooze. It's just a bear. Abrupt Decays, there's a couple of things Abrupt Decay can hit. Liliana, the Last Hope, seems kind of poor against what they're doing. Courser doesn't seem like what we want to be doing in this matchup. And either an Abrupt Decay or a Bolt. Cut a Bolt. Abrupt Decay at least can hit O-Stone or Map in certain situations, or Worm Tokens. Bolt just goes to the face pretty much. Guess I'd like to play first. Alright. Turn 1 Thoughtseize, turn 2 Grim Flayer. Can't really... Outside of like a Fulminator hand, there's not really much we could do, ask for more than that. Get an Overgrown Tomb. Alright, what is our opponent's hand? Wow, that's quite the hand they've got there. Stirrings, Star, Karn, O-Stone, Sylvan Scrying. Guess we take the Sylvan Scrying and hope they brick off for a little bit. Then we'll just play Grim Flayer and hope to ride that to enough of a disruption for victory. I mean, this deck on theory seems very good, but Tron's just like the ultimate. Yep, you're having too much fun. Alright. So we're gonna go... Yeah. Alright. They're one to land away from assembling Tron, so... Tarmogoyf. Go ahead and play out Grimflayer here. Tarmogoyf and Grimflayer are both the same size, but Grimflayer gives us more selection on our draw steps, and we need to find stuff pretty quickly. Seriously, you drew a Fatal Push on top of everything else? Okay. I was like, don't tell me they drew interaction on top of all the other nonsense they've had. So we know our opponent has O-Stone. It's possible they'll play that out next turn. Which means we probably want to set up a land if at all possible. Tarfire and Abrupt Decay in the graveyard. And then leave that on top. Play out a Goyf. Helps if I move to my main phase here. Yep, there's the O-Stone. So we already have a sorcery in the yard, so there's no sense in Well, those are some good cards. I think we put the Mire in the bin. Am I on the market for Liliana? Probably not. And then put this Fulminator Mage on top. And then pulse away this Oblivion Stone. Then our opponent has to be able to answer. I mean, if they have Tron here, we're just whatever. Yep. What's your payoff? Karn. Alright. Sure. So if our opponent gets a duplicate Tron piece, we're going to know here, or at least have some idea. Alright. Sphere is less scary. Alright, this is specifically when it hits player. Yep. Alright, I mean, we could dig for Bolt here, but with only 2 left in the deck, we really have to kill Karn. Use Fulminator to blow up their tower. Because that's obviously the last one they played. Just kind of hope we can just finish this off. Gah! This will at least let us know if we're going to continue playing this game or if we're just going to move along to the next match. Yep. See, this is the aggravating part about playing against Tron with mid-range decks, is just you can disrupt them, you can Thoughtseize them, you can blow up one of their lands, and Tron doing Tron things. Alright, well, let's go ahead and play at least one more match with this deck. Wanted to get a feel for it, see how it plays out. So how's everyone doing this fine Christmas day, wherever you are in the world? Guess there are some places it's not quite Christmas yet. So, for those of you watching this either now or on YouTube later, this is Pete Ingram's Promised End Jund deck, trying to capitalize on getting Emrakul the Promised End into play by clever pseudonym. Alright, at least we're not playing the same opponent, and hopefully they're not on Tron, so. They're immediately mulliganing to... no. We're going to keep this hand, but there's a lot of matchups where this hand is not good enough. Okay, mulligans to 5, puts the top card of their library. Alright. We draw Emrakul. So, this is likely a... I suppose it could theoretically be Lantern, but I think it's the Primordial Paradox Engine deck. Yeah, definitely the Paradox Engine deck. So we need to get our Goyfs into play and then be ready to blow up their stuff. And then, of course, we draw Inquisition off curve. But I think it's important enough to choke them on mana to deny them of a card here. Wildfire. Alrighty. So our opponent is a Wildfire. Alright. So, target player discards a card. Destroy target artifact. That way they lose most of their mana, they lose one of their wildfires, and kind of feel bad. Opponent's deck looks sweet. So they look like they're an artifact mana. They still might be the Paradox Engine deck that I'm thinking they might be, but we definitely want Ancient Grudges. We definitely want... the third Kolaghan's Command. Beyond that, what do we know we not want? Some number of bolts. Lavamancer, Cage, Bitter Blossom, Spellsky Angers, Pulse, Fulminator Finks. Probably get the Promised End out of here and get Thrun into the deck. Because Thrun could at least regenerate from Wildfire. So I'm already noticing a few issues with the deck. I think there's... Alright, so this hand seems fine. Other than our lack of Surge Node. Alright. So now am I supposed to bobble them or myself? I think we'll bobble ourselves to know if we really want the card. Swamp, no, not really. Go and grab Overgrown Tomb tapped and pass. Alright. Maybe they'll only have one land. That'd be nice. They're Ancient Stirrings, it's a possibility they only have one land. Darksteel Citadel. Traverse here. Am I supposed to get Tarmogoyf down, or am I supposed to... I think I'm supposed to get Tarmogoyf down. Don't let them know an Ancient Grudge is coming. Especially if this is how they're counting on building up their mana. This is really kind of wasting their resources. Well, that's unfortunate. So they're going to get one side of our Ancient Grudge. Yep. Not surprising there. Yep, Everflowing Chalice. Alright, Inquisition puts us in an interesting position. So... start by Inquisitioning them, seeing what's going on over there. Word of Invention and Pithing Needle. Otherworldly Atlas. Each player draws a card. So I think we take Word of Invention here. Go get another green source. Traverse here. What am I traversing for is the question. It's either Flare or Goyf. I guess we get, or is Raging Ravine a consideration? Guess we'll get another Tarmogoyf and then go ahead and blow up this Astral Cornucopia to choke on some of their mana. Then next turn we get to go Goyf, Goyf. Abrupt Decay, you say? Go ahead and blow up your Chalice here. Pass. Not sure there's too much our opponent can draw here to get out of this situation. Alright, Ancient Stirrings is one of their better cards. Mox Opal. Sure. Obviously, if they hit like a relic or something here. Pithing Needle, what? Naming Liliana? Raging Ravine. Okay, suppose that's a fair name. And instead, we just draw every Tarmogoyf in our deck. And I don't think you have an out here, friend. Alright, so I think we're going to end our experiment with Promised End Jund here tonight. There's a couple takeaways I have so far from the deck. I like the shell of the deck. I like the idea of a Jund deck with Traverse, Grimflayer, Tarmogoyf, and Bullets. I think the mana base is a little red heavy. Perhaps that's because of Raging Ravine here. But the deck feels a little red heavy and not enough black heavy. Like I feel like one of these Stomping Grounds should possibly be another Overgrown Tomb. I think Emrakul is a pipe dream. I don't really like it. Doesn't seem conceivable that we're ever going to realistically cast it in a timely manner. There might be some matchups where like having an Emrakul in the sideboard might be good, but I think Tarmogoyf, Grimflayer, Courser, Liliana is enough in a lot of game ones. And I think if you want to have like other threats, like this is the kind of deck that I could see having like an Olivia Voldaren or a Huntmaster of the Fells or a like Stormbreath Dragon or that kind of stuff in the sideboard. A lot better than the first Jund deck that I ever played on the channel. It's possibly better that it's just better as an Abzan Traverse shell. Like I like the idea of this shell minus the Emrakul, cleaning up the mana base a little bit. Your Traverses going and getting you know, your Tarmogoyfs or your Grimflayers or your Raging Ravines. I like that portion of the shell, so I'm not going to say the deck is a failure. What I would say is I don't think this Emrakul, the Promised End, and the mana base are quite right at this point in time. And in the sideboard, so realistically in the sideboard, I don't think this deck is going to ever beat Valakut and Tron on a regular basis. So I think those Crumble to Dusts should be something else. And I think Spellskite's a little too cute right now. Like I understand it's an artifact, but I don't think Spellskite's that good in the current meta. I think if you're worried about an effect, something like Malira would be better. And like I said, it's still possible that Abzan's an abject better shell for Traverse, a Traverse package with this build, or even something like the Sultai Bliss that were coming around for a little bit there. So we might be interested in trying out those shells. I like the idea of the Traverse, Mishra's Bauble, that kind of shell. I don't like Emrakul, the Promised End in it. I guess that's the thing from this deck. But this was, I figured we'd give something a spin from Pete Ingram's article on Star City Games a couple days ago. Deck list looks sweet, and other than the Emrakul and like a little bit of like the mana base needs some fixing, deck seemed pretty sweet overall. I mean, we played Tron. Tron does Tron things. Jund very rarely ever beats them. But I mean, we literally hit them with a Thoughtseize, we hit them with a Fulminator Mage, we had pressure on board, and they still just went, bleh, Tron. And the second matchup, we were against some type of artifact combo deck. I'm presuming it was a Paradox Engine deck. And Jund, obviously, with Kolaghan's Commands and Ancient Grudges, just blows that to smithereens. So we can't get a huge like feel of how good this deck actually is, but we definitely got a good look on the feel of the deck. So we'll wrap that up there. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up recording for this on the YouTube channel.